Cheer, cheer the red and the white, honor the name by day and by night. Lift that noble banner high, shake down the thunder from the sky. What though the odds be great or small, Swans will go in and win overall.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Bigfooty podcast. My name is Bonds and we are now coming off a disappointing 29-point loss against Collingwood. I'll now take this over to our infamous regulars. We have SM.
Hey.
SR100.
Hello.
Von.
Hey guys.
And Soph Cross.
G'day guys.
We'll also have a guest speaker this week, RW Fan, our new moderator.
All bow down.
Yep.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, we may as well get straight into it and talk about our highs and lows from the weekend. SM, do you want to get us kicked off?
Right, well, I reckon my high from the weekend, looking specifically at the Swans game, has to be Nathan Brown's horrible game for the Magpies. Just because I know how much that's going to upset Von over there. But his game was absolutely appalling, and I thought Tippett really got off the leash thanks to some early free kicks given away by Nathan Brown, really fired Tippett up for the game. And it saw Nathan Brown substituted, which was a brilliant sight to see.
Well, that was immature.
I'm just making a comment about the opposition. And I reckon a low light has to be, and I mentioned it at the end of the podcast last week, but Ben McGlynn coming back into the team was an absolutely dreadful decision, especially when it meant dropping Jed Lamb. He had 4 touches, kicked no goals, had no tackles, which is what he's in the team for. And I reckon Jed Lamb would have had a much bigger impact. We need to have competition for spots, and McGlynn just was handed his spot back, and I reckon that was a real disappointment for me.
Okay, SR100, can we get your views on the match, your high and low?
My low for the match was probably the way we conceded the inside 50s. I mean, 57-38. 38 inside 50s is almost Melbourne-like, and that was disappointing, and it just meant the defence was constantly under the pump, and we just had you can't win doing that. The positive for me was probably, it's hard to find one other than Tippett. So the crowd wasn't too bad, 42,000. So yeah, there was a few Collingwood fans, so Centrelink must have been offering some sort of air deal.
I was surprised by the crowd figure, actually. It was pretty big.
Weren't as many teeth in the crowd as normal, but I don't know how annoying are the Collingwood fans on Big Footy, if any of them listen to this. Bunch of dickheads. Can we say dickhead?
Yeah, let's go with it.
We'll beep it out, but they are a bunch of idiots.
Okay, Von, your highs and lows from the game?
My high was probably how Tippett performed. That's pretty much the only high I have. I've got some really interesting midfield stats because that was my low for the week. I thought we were appalling, so I decided to go have a look at just how badly we actually did. So this round, I only looked at round 20 in isolation, where Collingwood had 4 players in the top 20 for disposals. To give context to that, when we win really well, we only have 2. So they had Ball, Swan, Beams, and Pendlebury actually, I think, was first. So our midfield was absolutely dominated. And we only had McVeigh, who was probably the standout for me all night. And usually we have, 2 or 3. So I was really disappointed by the midfield.
Mind you, McVeigh had just as many as Pendlebury, just to put that out there. But it was just the fact that no one else really stepped up. I think the next highest was Hanbury with 21.
Yeah, but McVeigh was playing in the half-back line for 3/4 of the match.
Yeah.
McVeigh had not that much impact on the game.
Yeah,
He got the ball, but, yelling at your teammates isn't a stat. 35.
But seeing the game live and watching McVeigh off the ball, he was exceptional. He did really well last night. He was in the best. He was definitely in the best. But probably from what you guys saw on TV, I thought McVeigh was one of the better players last night.
Can I just say with McVeigh, his kicks, him and O'Keefe, just lower them a little bit. They were just bombing them up in the air.
I completely disagree with you there because I think McVeigh is a fantastic user of the ball, and I thought that he wasn't
last night.
I thought a lot of his kicks last night were quite good given how bad everyone else was.
Oh, yeah, okay. I guess in context of how everyone else went. But him and O'Keefe just need to lower their eyes a little bit.
Well, Luke Parker had, 6 bloody clangers or something? He was awful.
He was quiet last night. He was terrible.
And when he got it, he did nothing with it. I mean, yeah, McVeigh had a good game, don't get me wrong. I just, comparing the impact of him and Pendlebury, for instance, Pendlebury was awesome.
Okay.
Their whole midfield just went insane. They went crazy and they pressured us so much. Longmire press conference pretty much just said they made us sloppy, and Jude himself said that there was so much intensity they just couldn't play how they usually would. So, yeah, that's definitely my low light.
Okay, actually, speaking about Jared McVeigh, he only had 2 clangers for the night, looking at the stats so he wasn't the worst player on ground, but I believe our disposal everywhere last night was just shocking. We were kicking the ball long to Tippett or Mumford or Pike all night and not really lowering our eyes and trying to hit up an option. For several weeks now, we've been really relying on our spread and our ability for our midfielders to kick goals, and last night that really was non-existent except for Craig Bird. I believe it was, actually. No, sorry, Bird didn't end up with any goals. I take that back. Anyways, so can you please give us your high and low for the game?
My highlight personally would have to be Shea Mumford's chest. That thing is huge. Like, he is a monster at the moment, and personally he performed pretty well. I thought he did some really, really good things and rucked really well. For me, I guess, again, low lights would be our kicking. I thought our kicking was deplorable. Kicking it long to Kurt Tippett was ridiculous. The amount of times I watched that ball get bombed long into him and the amount of turnovers in our forward line killed me. But apart from that, Kurt Tippett was brilliant. He had an exceptional game last night, so they were the only positives I can take from it. But yeah, I thought our kicking was deplorable last night.
Okay, and RW fan, your highlight and low light from the night?
Well, my low light was probably actually the fact that we lost the milestone game. I know we used to lose. I know whenever a player had a milestone, we always used to struggle in those games, but we corrected that last year, winning in Jude's 300. But to lose in Teddy's 200 was a bit disappointing. Especially, I thought probably had one of his better games. Probably was one of his better games. He kept Cloak fairly quiet.
Yeah, he did.
I thought Teddy was really, really good.
Yeah. My highlight was probably most of them already been said already. I'd say Mummy especially, because I think there was some doubt about earlier in the year about where he was at compared with Pike, but I think now there's probably no doubt that he is the number one ruckman, and I think we've got to do all we can to keep him next year, so that's probably, and apart from that Tippett, of course, McVeigh as mentioned, I think that's about it really, yeah.
Okay, my personal highlight from the game before RW fan brought it up was Ted Richards' performance in his 200th game. He was brilliant on Cloak all night. If it wasn't for him against most defences, Cloak would have kicked 6 or 7 goals, I honestly believe. And he seems like he was really back to his best form from last year. Low light has got to be our lack of effort. We weren't running 2 ways. We weren't helping out our defenders. We couldn't clear any zones. It was a very off performance from our team, and it felt pretty disappointing to fly up all the way to Sydney and come back with a loss.
Oh, you got to hang out with me. It wasn't that bad.
It wasn't all too bad. Anyways, we're going to move on to the next section now. We're introducing RW Fan as our guest speaker for the week, and we've all got a few questions for him. SM, do you want to take it away?
Fire away.
I guess the first question we're going to ask, obviously, is how did you start supporting the Swans?
Good question. I was thinking about this the other day, actually, and I remember watching on TV, maybe back when I was in my late teens, I think it was around 98, 99, when I think it was the qualifying final, I think it was against St Kilda or someone like that in the wet with the SCG. I remember a game where O'Loughlin kicked 5 goals, and from there I got hooked. Somewhat embarrassed to say it took me about 4 or 5 years before I actually went to a game, which sounds a bit strange given I live in Sydney, but I started uni and I got busy with other stuff, but then my first game wasn't until 2003 when we played the Demons on Anzac Day, and that was a memorable game. That was the one we kicked 10 goals in the last quarter to win. I think it was Adam Schneider's breakout game, and I think from there I was hooked, I guess. So, yeah.
Cool.
Okay, do you have a favourite player?
Sorry?
So you were hooked, so about 2003 is where you sort of started going?
Yeah, 03 I would say, yeah, because from 99 I took an interest, but 03 probably onwards I really got hooked, I'd say, okay. Yeah. I think I've been going to games regularly since 04, I'd say.
Jeez, you're not a real supporter if you haven't seen a wooden spoon, jeez. Okay, so you've had two coaches, both have won a premiership. Who do you pick out of Roos and Longmire as the best coach?
Good question.
Oh, that is a good one. I think I'd say Longmire, actually. I think Roos did a lot of great work for us. I don't know, there's just something about, like, I love Roosy, but there's something about Longmire's manner. I just like the way he's got with the players, and somehow, I think I heard Barry Hall, I think one of the criticisms he said about Roosy, that he wasn't good at confronting players. I think when the relationship went off the rails back in 09, I think Roosy didn't handle that too well. I think Longmire's probably maybe slightly better in that area, maybe. But that's a really tough one because they're both really great coaches.
No, I'd agree. I'd go Longmire, personally.
So what did you think after the siren went in 2012 and the final day in September?
After the siren? Yeah. My first reaction was, oh my God, I couldn't believe we won it. It was just an incredible game. There was just the swings. Yeah. Like, I'd never seen a game with such wild swings. It was very similar to 05 in a way, because there were a few lead changes where first they were leading, we were leading, and then they kicked the first in the last quarter. It was just hard to. It was really. It's hard to put. It's just really. It's hard to put into words, but it was just I think just the swings. It was just it was a crazy one, but yeah.
Fair enough. Do you have a current favourite player from the Swans, and who was your first favourite player?
My first favourite player? No, I think in the current team maybe Ted Richards, I would say, because I always admired the players who had to overcome setbacks, and he'd certainly had his fair share in his career. First favourite player? I was going to say I used to have a soft spot for Ty Kennelly a bit because of the Irish story and the fact that he used to live just down the road from me, and the guy in the corner shop, the guy from our corner shop down the road used to see him quite a bit. He's a Roosters fan, but I think after getting to know Ty, I think he got converted to the Swans, so maybe he was an early favourite. But otherwise, I don't really have too many. I'm probably a fan of the team more than anything, but I haven't really had that many favourites. Schneider was another one because he had that break. He had that breakout game in the first one I went to, but yeah.
Fair enough. Do you have a favourite memory? Do you prefer one premiership, 05 or 2012 more than the other, or a single match that stands out in your mind or your heart?
Single match? Gee, that's... In some ways I enjoyed 2012 more. I think 05 I was way too nervous and I didn't enjoy the moment as much. I think the second time around I just sort of soaked it up a bit more, and it's kind of funny that I think when I think about it, considering how few flags we've won over the stretch, the fact that we've gotten to see two in the last decade is just quite amazing, and we feel like it's just hard to believe we've actually been that lucky to see two, and both were lucky. I mean, we both could have easily gone either way, and that's just so they're both pretty special.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we'll start moving on to the next section there. So, if I believe you want to talk about the reserves report?
Yep. Unfortunately for the seniors, they lost, but the reserves did have a strong win against the UWS Giants on the weekend by 65 points. It was impressive to see them go out. They fielded a stronger team in comparison to when we played GWS last time at the SCG and got thumped. So they did a lot more and performed a lot more better this time around, a lot stronger on field. And even though we won comfortably, it was our defenders that actually played the better game rather than our forwards. But I'll just give a quick rundown. It was 15-20, 110 to 6-9, 45. Our main goal kickers were Dean Towers, though he did miss a few shots. He could have kicked a fair few more, probably 6, I reckon. Rowan kicked 2 great goals. He's getting better every week that he plays in the reserves. He also could have kicked 3, had a bit of time and space to run into an open goal, but shanked the kick just a little bit too early. And Membry also came up with 2 goals. Our best players for the game, like I said, were our defenders. Shane Biggs, Alex Brown and Jordan Lockyer all played a brilliant game yesterday. Really impressed with Shane Biggs, considering he was given the, he almost played seniors a couple of weeks ago, and has been kept sort of named as an emergency. That was probably one of his big breakout games in the reserves, and could quite possibly, I don't know if we're willing to try, he could play seniors in the next couple of weeks. I was very impressed with Jordan Lockyer. I think he's been a bit quiet through the reserves this year, but yesterday was a standout game for him. So we did really, really well. For all the Rowan lovers out there, he's looking really good and he's looking really strong. He's got that pace and he's getting around the ball and he's getting it to teammates and he's doing everything that he's meant to be doing right. But for all of those people out there who are thinking that he's going to play seniors this year, I personally think that he's not going to. I've watched him come off the bench yesterday, sitting down near the reserves bench for a little bit. He was gasping for air. He's tired. He's not quite running out the games, but just give him a pre-season under his belt. He gets the rod taken out in October. He will be brilliant and ready to go for the next season. But yeah, the reserves had a really good win. I was really impressed. They wrap up the season against Sydney University next week at the SCG before the St Kilda game. If we win this game, we go into the finals as minor premiers. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully we can get a good couple of wins in the finals and get down to Canberra and hopefully play in a winning grand final rather than the last 3 losses over the last couple of years. So, yeah, that's my report for that, guys.
So
yeah.
if there's going to be any changes this week, who do you reckon from the reserves really stood out to earn a place? You mentioned Jordan Lockyer, but, I mean, who's the most likely to come into the seniors team, do you reckon?
Look, I would love to see Towers come in. I mean, I know there's a couple of people who I watch the reserves with who think he's been a bit on and off, but considering he kicked 3 good goals, he could have kicked more. He actually had a few. He marks brilliantly well in front of goal, and missed a few set shots, just shanked the kicks a little bit. But if I were to try and switch it around a little bit, I would try and put Towers in. But apart from that, it's a bit hard at the moment just because our forwards have been playing really, really well. And, I mean, our defence, though yesterday the seniors had a bit of a bomber of a game, our defence is still quite strong. But if anybody were to go in, I would say Towers out of the reserves. I mean, Jed Lamb didn't play yesterday, didn't play in the reserves, but obviously if I were to put anybody back in, I would probably put Jed in over Towers. But I thought Towers had a brilliant game yesterday, so he's the only one that I could see possibly making way for somebody.
If we have any listeners who think Xavier Richards is the answer to the third tall defender, do you have any thoughts on that? How far away is he from actually playing?
He was named in the best yesterday, last on the best list. He was good yesterday. I didn't see too much of his game yesterday. Look, I mean, I think he was very lucky to get that senior game in the rain. Who was it against that we played? Was it
Carlton, I think.
It was Carlton. Carlton in the wet. He was lucky, but he literally only came into that game within the last 15 minutes. You know, he's got a few things to work on, but he's very much like Teddy. He's got the similar smarts. He marks well under pressure and gets the ball back out. But I don't think it's Xavier's year this year. So next year.
The general question for all of you guys, do you think the standard of our reserve comp is one of the biggest negatives that the club faces in comparison to clubs who have VFL and Sandful and Waffle teams?
Oh, no, definitely not. I've been going to Resi's games for the last couple of years, and the introduction of the NEFL with both the Northern and the Eastern competition is the best that we're going to get at the moment, and it's a lot better. And this year, for the Swans reserves and for the Brisbane Lions and the UWS reserves, we've been playing them. They've offered us to play them more frequently this year to get a bit more harder bodies and game time against better opposition players. But the NEFL is a lot better, and it's only going to get better. It's just going to take some time. But I mean, we're never going to play in the VFL. Unfortunately, it's just not the thing we can do. But I personally think the NEFL is the best competition that our reserves can play in. It's going to take maybe another year or two to get some better teams in, but it's a lot better than what it used to be.
And look, I'm going to say, and it's a bit of a shout out to Bedford, who's criticised the competition in the past because our juniors take a bit longer to come into the team. But you look at the blokes that we list, who we think might have made it elsewhere, had the potential, but didn't really live up to it. They've gone into other state competitions like the Sandful or the VFL, and they've struggled there as well. So I don't necessarily think it's an indictment on the league necessarily as the players themselves. You look at guys like Hanbury and Mitchell, and they tore up the reserves and came straight into the seniors. They had no issue with it. I can see the point that in a stronger reserves competition, these guys could actually face some competition in the reserves. But you look at the players that we're letting go, and they're not really, lighting it up anywhere else. With a few rare exceptions like Daniel Curry, potentially in the Sandful. But yeah, I think the reserves competition's adequate enough.
Not to mention, if you look at teams like Queanbeyan, who actually played in the Foxtel Cup this year, they haven't been hopelessly outclassed. Besides the Werribee match, and even in the Werribee match, they were missing, I think it was 14 or 13 out of their best 22, due to not being able to get time off work or injury, ironically.
Yeah.
Time off work was a bit of a different excuse you don't usually see in state league matches, but they haven't been hopelessly outclassed by VFL sides.
Yeah.
So the NEFL quality is, I believe, is a lot stronger, especially in some of the top teams in the NEFL, than a lot of people give credit for.
Yep.
So if I do have one question for you.
Yep.
Shane Biggs, he was recently elevated from the rookie list to the senior list, and
yep.
As you touched on, he had a very good game on the weekend, and he nearly got a senior match a few weeks ago. If he was to come into the senior team, what position do you see him playing?
Oh, it's a tough one. Whilst Biggs is a defender, he plays in our back line, but he's a smaller defender. He's slowly putting on the muscle, so I guess he'd be sort of like a centre half back or something like that, but maybe, that's a hard one.
Could you see him playing as a defensive forward? Like, he had filled out that option in the VFL before.
That's what I'd see him as, definitely.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, well, we'll start moving on to the next section, I reckon there. What thoughts does everyone have on our next game against St Kilda? SM, do you want to kick us off?
Sorry, who are you asking that one to? Me?
Yeah. What thoughts do you have on our next game against St Kilda?
Yeah, look, I reckon it's going to be a pretty dour game, let's be honest. I mean, you look at our game against them earlier in the year, and yeah, we weren't in great form for that one, but the way that we match up with the Saints is we're both, the Saints not so much these days, but they were pretty defensively minded, and we're a pretty tight lockdown team when we need to be. So I can't see it being, a game full of highlights, but I think we'll get the job done and do what we need to do to get the win and the 4 points. And at this stage of the season, that's really all that matters, because Freo had a huge win today, but I can't see them completely overhauling our percentage. So I think as long as we can keep the 4 points ticking over, which we should do on the weekend, that's all we need to do.
Okay, Von, do you have any thoughts for this week's game?
Against St Kilda, this is a must-win game. Look, I definitely think that, St Kilda aren't having a very good year, but I think we should get the points for this one, so I really just want, a comfortable game with no injuries, and I hope there isn't too many tackles, because, Kennedy was saying how tired, just how sore he felt after the Bulldogs game. And that's something RW fan and I were talking about last night as well. So definitely heading into the pointy end of the season, I really just want, a good win.
RW fan, do you have any thoughts on this week's match coming up?
To be honest, kind of what's already been said, I was actually surprised by how far the Saints have fallen this year. I just looked at the ladder and they've only won 3 games for the year. And I was like, they were playing off in grand finals only 3 years ago. I was thinking, what happened? It should be an easy win. I mean, sometimes towards the end of the season, the teams that have nothing else to play for. Sometimes they can pull a surprise, but I think we should be okay with. I think we should be win fairly comfortably, hopefully. But, yeah.
SR100, any thoughts on this week's game?
Look, St Kilda are lucky Melbourne are in the competition because they're a terrible side. At the top end, yeah, okay, they've got talent, fading talent, but it's the people in between, they're just rubbish. If we don't win this game, we may as well put Q in the rack. If I was Scott Waters, I'd actually bring Cozzy in, play his 200th, which they seem so desperate to talk about in the media because they could stretch our defence that way. And I think he wasn't too bad against us in New Zealand, I didn't think. So I'd bring him in. I think Tommy Mitchell needs a rest, whether that's as sub or in the reserve. No, actually, I just wouldn't play him if he was going to be dropped. I'd give him a week off to freshen up because he's in the best 22, but he looks tired to me. And Lamb should come in. McGlynn shouldn't have played the other day, but now he's probably better for the run, so you may as well keep him in the team. Perhaps he probably should have played that game in the reserves, an empty spot, as we said before. And Kennedy, we need to free him up because he's gone from being tagged to playing out of form, I think. So he needs a big game against the Saints, but we should win by about 50 points if we're serious, let's face it.
Okay, so if any thoughts on this match coming up?
To tell you the honest truth, I'm actually a little bit nervous. I am. It's a Sunday afternoon twilight game at 3 o'clock at the SCG. We should hopefully have a really good home crowd, but St Kilda, for some reason, in the last couple of years, they've always made me a bit nervous. Whether it be, I don't know, I feel that we have similar qualities as St Kilda, not the winning and losing side of it, but I've always felt that we sort of matched up the same. Like RW fan said, considering that they've got nothing to play for, they can come out and surprise us. But I'll take a 30-point win. So I'm hoping we can get that. But I am nervous. I'm not going to lie, I'm nervous.
Okay, in regards to St Kilda, if you actually have a look at their injury list, they're really missing some key players to their lineup. Tom Simpkin was pretty much going to be marked as their number one key defender for this year besides Sam Fisher. Sipos is one of their best halfback flankers. Reece Stanley was performing well as a third defender, second defending option. Milera is a decent small forward. Meister, Kajuski, Sard. Sorry?
I was saying Cozzy's still injured because I think we were saying he might. This is listed as being 3 weeks away. I was having a look at it.
He's still listed as 2 weeks away with a calf injury.
Okay, yeah. So he won't play. He might miss out on his 200, which would be a shame. But yeah,
he'll still miss out. And then you've got Bo Meister and Sam Gilbert, who are probably most likely to miss this week. If you add in the fact that St Kilda are probably playing for draft picks in next season more than this year, especially assuming they want to try and find a way to trade down probably for pick 1 and try and nab Boyd, I can't really see us losing this week. I love it. I love nothing more for us to have an easy win, not get tackled much, and really be able to give our players a rest. But St Kilda do play a pretty defensive game generally when they have met us before, and I still think it'll be a decent contest and probably only a 30 or 40 point win for us.
Did anyone watch them Friday night against Hawthorn?
No, I didn't. Missed it.
I watched it on Friday night. They started off pretty well, but they fell away in the second half.
It was dull. Hawthorn played bruise-free footy, and they just did what they had to do. St Kilda were uncompetitive, really. The scoreline flattered them, I thought, and I mean they lost by 56 points.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought it was going to be over 100 in the end.
Yeah, I mean it was the most bruise-free, dull game I've ever seen. Is Ahmet Sard playing, or is he...
Yeah, I don't understand that.
He's injured at the moment.
I think he played last week against the Lions. I don't know if he played on Friday night. But surely if he's at the centre of some sort of drugs investigation, he shouldn't be able to take the field. St Kilda have said he will be playing out the rest of the season, whether that be in the first or the second. But he actually pulled his quad during training last week. Of course he did.
It was probably during his run-up for goal. How long is that?
I was resisting the urge to say something about his run-up for goal. But that is appalling. I'm so glad I don't have to spend 2 minutes watching him run up for goal next week.
Look, I'm going to say this. You wouldn't...
You can take it all week. You just can't have it in your body on match day.
What's that? What's the substance he was taking?
Some thing he's sponsored by. You can get it at the chemist. I can't remember the name. But if it's in your body during the week, that's fine. It just can't be in your body on match day. So you'd be pretty dumb to be caught with it.
Yeah, I can understand that.
But I mean, he's not that valuable or anything. So.
He's
Yeah,
still
except for a time waster.
he hasn't been. He's been a difficult matchup for us in the past. Like I remember the game last year. Him and Milne combined quite well against us.
Yeah, Milne. There's no one likeable at that club.
Well, you can't really hate Nick Rewalt or Lenny Hayes.
Lenny Hayes.
Lenny Hayes is.
Yeah, Hayes, yeah.
Well, you can hate him.
Well, Lenny Hayes could have been ours, but...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And Jude could have been a Saint.
I don't mind Dennis Lane, I guess. He's alright.
Won us a final, so he can be in our good books.
Yeah.
I am pleased to see Dempster plays alright for him. I don't know why we ever let him go, but there you go. That's likeable.
Yeah, there you go. And
No,
Schneider.
Dempster was great back in those two grand finals, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember he set up a goal to, I think, Kennelly it was in the second quarter of 05. Everyone remembers? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll move on to our topic of the week, and where we'll finish off tonight. We're basically be talking about where are we likely to finish at the end of the season, and can we still make top four? SM, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so basically running through my ladder predictor, and I think Von's got a very similar sort of outcome. I've got us making fourth, but surprisingly I've got Richmond in fifth, and I reckon if we drop the game against the Hawks, we're in real danger of missing the four, and Richmond for getting into the top four, which would be absolutely out of nowhere. But I reckon the way my ladder's shaped up, I've got us playing Geelong in the first week down in Melbourne, which I can't really see us winning, which would then have us play Richmond in the second week up here in Sydney, which would be an interesting game, but I can't really see us losing that one, which would then take us through to a prelim against the Hawks, and who knows from there.
That makes me feel sick. Oh, God, that's scary.
And that's looking pretty likely, and it's got Fremantle in third. I'm just going to put that out there. Not making the top two.
And Soph, do you know, where do you honestly believe we'll be finishing at the end of the season, and what possible matchups could we be looking at during finals?
Look, I'm not one that's good at doing ladder predictions and that, but I'm hoping that we do finish in top four. I would prefer to face off Geelong in a final, and I would like to actually play Geelong down in Melbourne, because I think it would just be, because everybody knows how much I can't stand Geelong, so I'd be happy to beat Geelong down in Melbourne. I mean, we've got them in 2 weeks down at Simmons Stadium, so to see us beat them down there could give us confidence to win a final against them down there. I honestly pat on the back to Richmond if they make top four. I think they've had a brilliant season, but I'm hoping that we scrape in 3 or 4th. I'll be bloody happy with that, considering, you know, we haven't had the same season as 2012. So 3rd or 4th on the ladder for me. Well done, boys.
Okay, Von, do you have any thoughts on what's going to happen for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I did the ladder predictor as well, and mine was quite similar to SM. The only difference was that just based off this current form, I don't think that we're going to win against Geelong and Hawthorn. I mean, we didn't last year, and obviously precedent, you know, doesn't mean anything, but just as a guide, if we lose those two and we win the one against St Kilda, that will mean we finish 5th. So if we do finish 5th, we're going to be versing Port.
Tough match.
And then after that, in my ladder predictor, it's going to be Richmond or Essendon. But then if we do end up winning even just one out of Geelong and Hawthorn, which is crucial, then we finish top 4. But I was very surprised at Richmond this year, because they have Carlton, Giants and Essendon coming up. So Essendon and Richmond are pretty much going to decide who finishes top 4 if we lose those 2 games. So it's very interesting. And
there was a great stat put up at the game today, the Essendon West Coast game, that Essendon really doesn't win many matches in August. So going back the last couple of years even. So I reckon they're really running out of steam here. So I can't
they
see
haven't been impressive. They haven't been impressive at all. And to lose against West Coast at Etihad, and if you have a look at the West Coast Eagles injury list, that is an insane list.
And Josh Kennedy barely touched it today.
Yeah, so Yeah, if we do finish top 4, then I have us up against Hawthorn at the MCG, and that will be very interesting.
Okay, SR100, what are your thoughts on the rest of the season?
The biggest positive, I guess, is that our fate's in our own hands. I mean, if we're good enough and we win all 3, we can finish second. I think I even had a scenario where we finished first, but logic to me, and I'll keep the faith and suggest we'll beat Hawthorn, but I never tip us to beat Geelong at Simmons Stadium. I think that thin ground doesn't suit us, and I don't ever. I mean, who beats Geelong down there apart from us that one time? But I think the most crucial games coming up are Essendon, North Melbourne, because North Melbourne beat them, and then I think they're no threat. Hawthorn, Collingwood. We actually need Hawthorn to win that probably to keep Collingwood from overtaking us. West Coast, Geelong. I think that's the only game I can see Geelong losing if we don't beat them. Freo, Port. That's the only game Freo could possibly lose. And Essendon, Richmond. If Essendon can do the right thing and lose this week, then we need them to actually recapture their form and knock Richmond off so we can stay fourth. But I actually had us falling to fifth as well, like Vaughn. But I think we actually could be the first team to win the flag from fifth, because I would back us to beat Port in a final, and I'd back us to beat Richmond in a final, and I'd actually back us to beat Fremantle in a final, and then we win the premiership.
Would you back us to beat Richmond at the MCG, though, in a final?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes. Richmond are going to be the Essendon, the North Melbourne of the last couple of years, and be a deer in the headlights come finals time, because their game, they were coming last for tackles, I think, in the competition, and that's just not a game style that's going to stand up very well in finals.
They're better this year, though, but I tend to agree. I think they might struggle a bit in finals. Yeah.
I'm a Richmond fan.
Yeah.
Same.
And if we don't win the premiership, I'd be happy to see Richmond win it, in all honesty. But I think we're a better side, and I think Richmond will sneak into the 4 potentially on the back of a soft finish. I know we'll get held down for talking about soft draws for other clubs, but I don't see them as a threat. And I wouldn't worry about Essendon, guys. They'll lose their points in a week or 2, so they're gone.
Well, they're doing their best to just drop out of the finals themselves.
They know the points are gone. It's being discussed now as we speak, I reckon. I'd take them. Would you take their points, everyone?
Definitely.
Yes.
I'd take next year's, actually. Let them play finals this year.
I actually don't even have Essendon finishing above us, even if they don't have their points taken away and we lose both to Geelong and Hawthorn. They're just so out of form that I can't see them beating Richmond in round 23, sadly.
Yeah, I agree.
What about North and Carlton?
But North can't make it.
No, I mean Essendon versus North versus Carlton. That's their run home.
I had North beating Essendon this week because on current form, I know North. I mean, if North can get a 100-point lead in the third quarter, so they're not worried about team overrunning them, then they're a chance. But Essendon, to me, have given up, I think, Hughes in the rack, so they're a nothing team. I don't see Collingwood as a threat because I can't see them beating Hawthorn. And so I think it's only really Richmond who are our threat for the top 4. So if we just need Richmond to drop a game, then we'll finish top 4. So I'm actually confident of 4th spot.
Personally, you've also got to look at in the final round, in round 23, will Hawthorn be resting players for that first week of finals? I mean, at that point in time, they should have top 2 locked away.
Hawthorn are the one team that can't fall out of the top 4. I believe that's true. So they can sort of almost decide who they want to. Do they see Collingwood or Sydney as a bigger threat and choose who to lose to if they wanted to get really fussy, because they're safe. I
don't think they'll mess that much around with form, though, that close to the final.
Oh, not after last year.
No.
Yeah.
I
think Hawthorn have one hand on the cup, unfortunately, whether we want to admit it or not. It's just the Geelong hoodoo they're worried about.
I reckon it would be fascinating if it's a Hawthorn-Geelong grand final, to be honest.
And I hope Hawthorn thump them.
No way.
Yes, way.
It's an odd year. It's Geelong's year. We'll take the even years.
That's why I want them. That's why I want, if Hawthorn and Geelong face off in the grand final, I want Hawthorn to beat them, purely because I do not want Geelong to sit there and say, it's an odd year, this is why we're going to win it. They don't deserve to win it because it's an odd year. They deserve to win.
If you lived in Tasmania, you wouldn't be going for Hawthorn in a grand final. Bloody Tassie Hawks crap.
I would love nothing more than to see Franklin have a shot after the siren on the grand final to win it and miss.
That would be nice.
That would be just beautiful.
If we win the grand final, though, I think the the biggest thing is that'll give us 3 flags and Geelong 3 flags in the same amount of time, so we could potentially argue with a better team since 2005.
Except there will be no platform for us to argue on because Bigfooty would melt down if we won another flag because the main board would be overflowing with cola.
Yeah, cola.
And then you know what we would do? We'd go out in the off season and poach Talia from the Crows, or we'd grab.
No, we're gonna get like Buddy Franklin and Hawthorn just gonna lose their shit.
Dustin.
Yeah.
No, I'd be on the board 2 minutes after the siren.
Now, speaking of the grand final guys, Soph made a thread on the Swans board just before, and I thought I'd get your opinions on this. We made the grand final last year. So what's your take on whether, if we make the grand final this year, whether you'd go to the game, whether you'd view the game as, as dramatically as last year's game, or how would it sit with you guys?
Look, I posted that thread up because I've been sitting here all year after going down to Melbourne last year and watching that, 2012 grand final. It was absolutely brilliant and absolutely so special to me. So, I put it up just to see what people thought because I think most people said that it was the fear of losing, and I think really that's what it comes down to is I'm so scared to lose, but, if we make it, we make it, but I just don't want to lose. I just can't bear to lose. That's the only reason why I put that up there. But I don't think we're as good as we were last year. That's just my opinion.
Oh, it's pretty obvious for me that I'll be going to the game living in Melbourne. I'm unsure about you guys who actually would be flying down from Sydney, but assuming it is a grand final, would you really want to miss the chance of a lifetime to go back to back?
Oh no, look, I would definitely go. It's just the fear of going and losing. That's all it is. That's what it is to me. I couldn't imagine sitting there at the MCG again on the last Saturday in September and watching them lose. It would shatter me. But again, it's, we're a couple of weeks off from the grand final, so I guess we just wait and see what happens.
Okay,
Look,
so
I don't reckon I wouldn't even go, to be honest. But yeah.
Well, it is pretty expensive to fly down. It's like for Sydney, like when you add in tickets, flights, accommodation, it's.
I mean, the hunger and the excitement and the adrenaline was all there last year, but it's died off a little bit this year.
No, that bit, I don't really get that to a point because after, you enjoy the win, but it's a new season. I want to win every year, and I can't get enough of the wins.
Yeah.
I don't care that we won last year because as soon as someone else wins it, we're no longer the premiers. And
that's right.
Exactly. But I reckon if someone else wins it this year, then that'll be even better because next year it will be that sort of that hunger and the burn to win it back. Whereas if we win it again this year, it won't mean as much to me. I don't think.
I think I kind of half get where you're coming from, but I think this club's never won back to back.
Yeah, that's true.
I know.
That's true.
I think that. Yeah, and then, we've never won 3 in a row, we've never won 4 in a row, no one's ever won 5. I want to win every year. It's old news that we won last year.
Yeah,
it's no consolation to me come grand final day that we won last year if we don't win it this year.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I mean, I probably won't fly over again unless I win Tessalotto, but it's so that I can understand the not going aspect potentially, but nah, I want to win.
Oh no, I still want us to win, and I'm absolutely going to be right behind the team and pumped up if we win. But like you're saying, I just can't motivate myself enough to actually fly over for it.
I think you say that now, but if we win a prelim, I think you're just going to completely change your tune because winning in finals winning in finals is addictive. And
we'll see how finals go.
Once
how often do you get
close, you make a grand final. Like, you make a grand final once in a lifetime, and there are people
once every 6 years for us.
Yeah, but it won't be like that forever.
I know.
Yeah.
Week by week, guys. Week by week.
Week by week, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Week by week. There's still a long way to go.
And the other thing is, looking at the predictors we just did, if we make the grand final in 7 weeks, whatever it is, we must have gone on a hell of a run and a hell of a journey to get there. I think it's going to be probably more exciting than last year if we win this year's premiership because of where we're coming from. Because this time last year, I think we were probably looking a little bit better. I mean, as Soph said, we were probably playing better going into the last few weeks. I mean, we did fall apart a bit there, and we had less injuries, and we looked more likely in my mind. So I think if we get there this year, it'll be pretty bloody exciting.
Yeah.
I think we need a good showing. I think, as I said on the board, I think we need a good showing in the finals, even if we don't end up winning it, just to validate the season in a way. I think to back up last year's effort, we need to at least make a prelim, just to show it's been a success, I guess. But I think we'll just take it 1 week at a time. Be the old cliche, as they say.
I don't want to sound like punts, but I think we have to. I think we need to win one of the Geelong or Hawthorn games to be a threat. Even if we do sneak into the 4, we need a bit of credibility and a bit of that confidence that we can match it with the best sides this year, which we haven't. We haven't beaten anyone in the top 4 yet. Like we had last year.
We drew with Freo.
We should have won it, but we haven't beaten anyone in the top 4.
Yeah.
That still remains. I mean, we've lost to quite a few top 8 sides this year.
Yeah, that is true. It's been an odd year to say the least. Our losses have been really disheartening, but our wins really... We haven't really had a thumping win over a top 8 contender, except for possibly the Essendon and the first Collingwood match down at the MCG.
And we haven't had close to our best team on the park for most of the year, and in form as well. I mean, our best team, I think, is capable of winning the premiership. But I don't know if the team we have playing right now... is
the
this
team we have
capable?
playing right now, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. So many of these players don't have any finals experience, and finals is a completely different ballgame. So, as we all know, what happens when our bottom 5 or 6 players don't step up, how weak we are and how vulnerable we are. So that'll be exposed in finals, and that's why I don't think that we can actually win it this year, just because our bottom 5 is just a bit, too inexperienced for me.
Yeah, people like a Jesse White sort of thing. When he played a good game against a good side.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we went round the group, who thinks right now we're going to win the premiership?
No one.
Okay, I'm going to go out on my own and say we will.
I'm still going to say we won't, but only because of the bottom 6 theory, I think. Because our last two flags, that bottom 6 is what's won us the grand finals, and this year I think it's maybe a bit too inexperienced. Yeah.
Tune in next week and I'll tell you why we'll win the premiership.
I'd love to hear it.
On that note, it's been a great podcast, everybody, and thanks for listening.
Code word.
I got a good code word. Red Vest wins this week.
No, I don't like that code word.
I don't get it.
Because the Red Vest, they subbed off both McGlynn and Brown.
Oh, yeah, I agree. That was my highlight and my lowlight. So there we go, the Red Vest.
Oh, you are so immature.
Or we could go the sexual tension between SM and Von as the code.
I don't know what you're talking about.
There's no sexual
I have
tension.
no idea what you're talking about.
Sorry.
That's definitely not going to be it. We could actually talk about the tension between SR and punts. Has anyone else noticed that SR
Okay,
has
everybody.
put up punts
Okay.
every single week? So there we go.
We're polar opposites on the Swans board.
All opposites attract.
Yeah, it's love.
Is he a guy or a girl?
Okay,
a
every...
girl.
So, Bonds, there's our code word.
Okay, the code word for this week is Red Vest. Thank you for listening. I am your host, Bonds, along with SM, SR, Von, and Soph. With a very special thanks to RW Fan for being our guest speaker for the week. Thank you and good night.